Okay, I've decided to make a video here over project development. And so if you're seeing this video, please make sure that you go and take the quiz. It is available in e-learning, and there is an extra credit if you can be successful on this quiz and on the first quiz that we had in class. Okay? And so I want to talk a little bit about project development today. And we begin by saying there's an old saying that if you don't know where you want to go, you'll never get there. And that's the same thing for engineering projects. To be successful, we have to have proper planning. Now, this may be a little hard to read, but here are some different project development steps. We start out with a preliminary concept or proposal or bid. And then we have right now what you're doing is startup development and some design. Okay, and in the midst of that, we have concept design and preliminary design, and these are the things that you're working on right now. As we go towards the second semester of the class, you'll start getting toward prototype, integration, and a whole lot of other things that you're going to see there, verification, and then of course finally production, which is not something you'll likely do in the course, but you definitely need to get yourself to verification before the end of this next semester. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit more about the project development process. One of the things, again, this is a little hard to read the details, but this is a Gantt chart, and there are several different types of charts for project development. There's lots of different software out there. Perhaps you've heard of some of them out there, some of them more well known, like Microsoft Project, but there's a number of them out there. So this Gantt chart basically shows the different steps that are needed to complete the project. And in this case, not all Gantt charts look like this, but in this case, the arrows are showing the interconnections between some of the different steps. Okay, it is important that you do this within your project, that you map out the entire thing to completion, and then this serves as a place that you can check on your progress and make sure that you're making adequate progress toward your goals. And so I highly encourage you to construct a Gantt chart. You should do that for this project. Let's talk a little bit about the schedule itself. First off, design planning and scheduling, that is like the Gantt chart. It's more difficult during these days of concurrent engineering. We do a lot of things together. Concurrent engineering meaning we're doing a lot of different processes together. In fact, these processes may not even be in the same location, and that makes it difficult. The specification for electronic controller can be a moving target for months. Trying to even get those specifications are very difficult, and oftentimes they change. In the meantime, customer and corporate management insists on obtaining definite plans to budget and assign resources. They got to do their job, which means they've got to get more definite ideas, but you're trying to figure out this moving target, and it becomes tricky. But the customer, of course, wants the lowest price and shortest delivery time, and sometimes it's difficult to meet all those demands. Okay, and the one thing that as a company we dread, and the buyer certainly dreads this, is we're not able to ship these things because we're waiting for some other little piece. And sometimes this happens where we have a very expensive big product, and yet it's one little thing that hangs us up, and that's very frustrating. The project development schedule, the inability to accurately schedule an engineering development plan can sometimes lead to both the developer and the customer to fudge schedules, and then it becomes kind of silly. And this happens a lot too, where we make a schedule, but nobody follows it, and it doesn't even mean anything. I think the whole point of the exercise isn't so much the dates and the absolute schedule. I think the point of doing this, at least in my experience, is to see the interconnections between the different sub projects and make sure that you're aware of them. Okay, and then just a few other things here. A competent electronics engineer must conceptualize and follow the proper development plan. That's very critical, and we must understand the milestones. Okay, and keep track of them. And that's important that we revisit them regularly. Okay, we're going to talk about a preliminary design review, a PDR. Preliminary design review is the milestone that when system architecture and partitioning of functions between hardware and software, maybe in your case, shown by block diagrams and pseudocode, are reviewed. Okay, we're basically reviewing the connections and the subdesigns and functions and making sure they all work right. Preliminary reliability analysis and all these other things are critiqued by peers to ensure that the design goals are met. So basically, we lay out our plans and we make sure they're feasible. There are established entry criterion to define what is presented and the exit criterion to be approved. So we know what we want, and we've got some clear plans. When that's approved, the design can start. Okay. For example, the development phases of aircraft equipment. This is just for a chart. You can see here design from proposal, concept, preliminary design, prototype, integration, and then even further toward actually development and production. And some companies don't have as many steps. Things larger the company, the more steps you're probably going to have along this process. Development of engineering activity. It's important to remember that each phase represents a lot of activity with one exit and the criterion are satisfied. So really within each block there's its own exit criterion. Okay, and we really have a whole nother team of people in large companies that basically supervise the whole process to make sure that we are doing the right quality and that we are connecting these things properly. Okay, and that's what configuration control is all about. Okay, and a lot of companies do have different approaches to it, but it's basically it gets to be a lot of companies get to be a lot of silos and a lot of individual teams, and we need people to connect these teams, and that's so critical. Most of the biggest problems that we have are the connections between the teams and the project groups. It is important that you maintain a logbook with numbered pages to make sure you're keeping track of all your drawings and things, and we've talked about that already. Okay, so that's a big part. Another big part is risk management, and it's something that sometimes you don't initially think about because we're so focused on design and fundamentals. Let's talk a little bit about project management versus risk management. Okay, the project management, of course, is designed to address the general or generic risks. Yeah, of course, we're going to look at things as a big picture, but we're really looking for what should happen and try to make it happen. We're planning for success. Risk management's different. It's designed to focus on the risks unique to each project, and it's looking at potential problems and creating these contingency plans. It evaluates what could happen and looks for ways to minimize the damage. And we try to manage and mitigate potential causes of failure. So there's all sorts of different types of risks that occur in problems and projects. Certainly, the number one that we think about is technical risks. The problems with programming languages, size, functionality, methods, standards, processes. This is the one thing that's basically, did we apply our technical knowledge correctly? Okay, that certainly can happen, and there's many cases of that, but it's not always the case. There are other risks that are quite common as well. One of them which is management risks. You might have individual groups that are achieving their technical specifications just fine, but if they're not put together properly and we don't have the organization, then we can have a lot of problems fitting those individual pieces together. Okay, and that's what I would say is generally management risks, though management risks can be all sorts of different types of things that are going on within an engineering company or a large firm or a large corporation. Financial risks are big, cash flow, budgetary issues, and making sure sometimes you can start a project and the finances are in one place, but as you continue, and this could be a 2-year long project, and everything's changed. For instance, just take a look at the price of oil on the market right now. That's caused a lot of changes to oil companies and oil exploration over the last 6 to 9 months, and a lot of projects that have been started are now put on hold. So you have external things that can happen that can change the nature of a lot of projects. Contractual and legal risks, this happens a lot too. We have a lot of issues with patents, lawsuits, other things like that. Regulation, those things can definitely interfere with the process. And personnel risks, people leaving, and also issues between people are really important to look at and to consider. Okay, so you can kind of consider this a risk management process. Essentially, what we try to do is we certainly want to prioritize risks, we want to plan for them, we want to track them, and then we want to have some kind of contingency plan. And as much as we focus on the technical, and that certainly has to be the number one focus, it is important to spend some time on the risk management side. And if you've ever met a quality engineer, they're going to tell you all about this, give you lots of stories about how important this process is. So risk analysis steps, first, of course, determine the likelihood of this probability that this risk will result in a loss. There are things sometimes when we brainstorm that are not very likely that we decide to dismiss. But most of the time, we do try to address things. The impact, obviously, what could it do? Okay, the time frame, when does that need to be addressed? Sometimes they're immediate, sometimes you can wait. And the interrelationships between risks. Sometimes the probability of one risk does affect another. And basically, you can think of this as a risk planning, management planning. The idea is, of course, if it's too big of a risk, we don't want to tackle it. If we don't know a lot about it, we better get more information. Can we transfer the risk? Can that risk be put on somebody else, or can we outsource this part or this piece and say, well, they're going to be on doing this and make sure they're holding the risk? Sometimes that can happen. Sometimes it can't. Maybe there's other ways in which we can do this to take action. Okay, to control the risk is probably the most likely thing, and to accept the risk and have a contingency plan for it. Everything has risk, so there's really no project that you're ever going to have that would not have this process. So again, identification, responsibilities, assessment, response, mitigation, and a plan. This is a very worthwhile exercise. You're not going to spend nearly as much time on this as you are in the technical area, but if you're not doing this, then you're not doing your job right, because this is definitely a part of any project. And then a contingency plan basically is a plan that's implemented only if the risk actually turns into a problem. Okay, and so basically you have plans that try to tackle that and handle that if that does occur. Okay, and so I hope this helps, gives you some basic fundamentals of project management. And please go ahead again and take that quiz online, and we'll see you in class soon.